In early 2026, Iran did something it had threatened for decades. It moved toward choking off the Strait of Hormuz, the waterway that a fifth of the world's oil passes through, and signaled it would use that leverage if pushed further. The Gulf states sitting right next to it have some of the most advanced militaries in the Middle East. So, why didn't they step in and fight back? The answer isn't weakness, it's a calculated bet. And today we're breaking down exactly what that bet looks like, system by system. Rewind to late February 2026. The US and Israel launched a major military campaign against Iran's nuclear and missile infrastructure. Iran hit back, not just at Israel, but at nearly every Gulf state hosting American forces. Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, all took direct strikes. Here's the uncomfortable part for the Gulf states. They didn't start this war. They didn't even want it. But American bases sitting on their soil made them targets anyway. And that single fact has shaped almost everything they've done since. Here's something most coverage misses. The Gulf isn't acting as one block. There's a real split forming. So on one side, you've got Qatar and Oman, the restraint camp. Their red is simple. Getting pulled deeper into this war risks way more than it gains. Both countries have spent years building themselves as neutral mediators, and they're not willing to burn that. On the other side, the UAE has taken a noticeably harder line. It's not a coincidence. The UAE has absorbed more Iranian strikes than any other Gulf state. Officials there have openly floated joining military action to secure the Strait of Hormuz outright, rather than just playing defense. Saudi Arabia sits in between, publicly cautious but quietly hedging its bets in ways we'll get into. This is the part that actually matters for understanding where this goes next. What are the Gulf states doing with their militaries right now while they wait this out? First, air and missile defense. For the first time ever, the UAE has allowed Israeli personnel to operate an Iron Dome battery on its own territory. Think about how significant that is. Gulf Arab states and Israel weren't even in relations a decade ago. Now, Israeli air defense crews are stationed on Emirati soil. Second, they're diversifying who they buy weapons from. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar have all signed defense cooperation deals with Ukraine, deals that reportedly include actual military technology transfer, not just symbolic support. That's notable, because Ukraine has spent the last few years becoming a serious innovator in drone warfare out of necessity. Third, they're looking past Washington entirely for some of this. Gulf states have opened arms discussions with Turkey, and even explored options with Russia and China. This isn't about abandoning the U.S. relationship. It's about not being solely dependent on any one supplier if Washington's appetite for involvement changes. Put together, this is a hedging strategy. Stay under the American security umbrella for now, but build enough independent capability that you're not defenseless if that umbrella gets pulled back or arrives too late. So if they have all this capability, why not just use it to shut Iran down? Two reasons. First, cost asymmetry. Missile defense is enormously expensive per intercept, while the missiles and drones attacking them are comparatively cheap. In a long war of attrition, that math favors Iran, not the Gulf. A second, and maybe more important, none of the Gulf states actually want Iran to collapse. A failed state next door, with tens of millions of people, is a worse outcome for them than an intact, even hostile Iranian regime they can eventually negotiate with. That's why you'll notice none of them have drawn a hard red line that guarantees retaliation. Ambiguity, on purpose, is the strategy. Longer term, there's a bigger shift happening under all of this. As any settlement takes shape and U.S. forces potentially draw down, the responsibility for deterring Iran shifts more onto the Gulf states themselves. They already have some of the most advanced missile defense systems in the world. The real test is whether they can coordinate them together without the U.S. directly running the show. That's a much harder problem than buying hardware. It means Gulf states, some of whom have their own rivalries, actually integrating command, intelligence, and response in a way they've never had to before. The Gulf states aren't weak, and this isn't paralysis. It's a bet that patience and quiet capability building beats a war they can't fully control. Whether that bet pays off depends on something nobody can fully model, whether Iran, backed into a corner, decides restraint is still worth it too. If you want the next video breaking down exactly how Iron Dome and similar systems actually intercept a missile, let me know in the comments. That's coming next.